Kia ora koutou katoa. The Feast of Epiphany, January the 6th. And the season of Epiphany starts January 6th, finishes at Lent, which this year is in early March. And the theme throughout this time is light. The light that baby Jesus would grow into become, not just to his disciples or his own people, but to all people everywhere, of whatever creed, race, sexual orientation, whatever. The metaphor of light works like this. God, or most Christians believe, is a source of energy, of love, justice, and joy. This love, justice, and joy is the kind of light, the substance of the light, that Jesus is radiating and reflecting. So you could say Jesus is like a candle, burning with love, justice, and joy. And then this Jesus candle ignites other candles, other people, whole communities, who in turn also burn with love, justice, and joy. And they in turn ignite others. There's a game I played as a child. I had a little mirror, a bit like this one. And I would use it to reflect light around the room. I could also use it to reflect light into gloomy places, corners, boxes, places devoid of light. And as I grew, I realized this was a way of understanding my Christian vocation, to reflect light, love, justice, and joy into places and into people's lives where light was absent and wanting. The season of Epiphany encourages us to not only understand Jesus as a candle, enabling us to see the world around, but also to see ourselves as candles, enabling others to see their world around, to see with love, justice, and joy. The word light, of course, is also a pun. And this other meaning of light, that's light as opposed to heavy, is also found in the Jesus stories. And the vocation is to lighten, to relieve someone of the load they're carrying, or what we ourselves are carrying. Recently, I was hiking on a very cold, wet, and muddy track for 3 days. My companion's backpack strap was pinching a shoulder nerve, and try as she might to reposition the strap, it was still uncomfortable and sore. So we stopped and took out the heaviest thing in her pack, something that's called a water bladder. It contains the water as a tube that comes around your mouth. And I carried it for her. The pain in her shoulder left, and she could resume hiking. In a similar way, the season of Epiphany encourages us to help one another with what we are carrying. Sometimes to discard it, like tip the water out, and sometimes to carry it for them. The first reading in our liturgy today is a poem by Mary Oliver. It's titled, Don't Hesitate. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give into it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not often very kind. And much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back. That sometimes something happens better than all the riches and power in the world. It could be anything. But very likely you notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb. To paraphrase Mary Oliver, don't hesitate. Don't be afraid of joy. Joy is not meant to be a crumb. When you've been hurt, scarred in body, mind and soul, as the late American Pulitzer poet Mary Oliver was, it is natural to be afraid, to hesitate, to think that life has little possibility left, to shy away from goodness, to be wary of what comes in the name of love. A wedding, like in our second reading today, the wedding at Cana, is an occasion for joy. For most people in most cultures, an invitation to a wedding is an invitation to participate in joy, to be happy with others in happiness, to join with others to not only mark a milestone in a particular relationship, that of the marital couple, but to celebrate that the goodness and hope of love itself is still alive, even if goodness and hope has not been our experience. Weddings offer 3 gifts: joy, love, and community. They offer the occasion to publicly hear a declaration of love, and an opportunity for all present to ponder upon their own experiences of love. When a couple declare their love in front of family and friends, and by love I mean not just the head over heels love of today's, but the tenacious, gritty love needed for the tomorrows. When they declare that love, they are inviting us to bear witness to something sacred. For God, I believe, by whatever name or no name, is present whenever this happens. Whether the couples are believers or not, profess to be religious or not, when that head over heels, tenacious, gritty love is pledged, God shows up. It's a sacred occasion. It is no mere signing of papers. God shows up too, not just in the pledging and affection of the couple. God is also present in the community of witness, this collection of family and friends, minister, who become bound as a community of witness, to bear witness and also by their presence to bless. They are a community who largely know the couple, love the couple, want to support them. And for those members anyway who have some inkling of the headaches and heartaches that may be ahead, wish to convey to them, by their presence and unarticulated prayers, a sacred blessing. Something godly like, don't hesitate, don't be afraid of joy. Joy is not meant to be a crumb. So weddings are about joy, love, and community. Joy, of course, is found in many things, great and small. It's not the preserve of weddings or couples. Joy can be found in the simple things of greeting a new day, like opening the curtains to let the light in, or sipping an aromatic cuppa, or in complex things like puzzling on a problem or listening to grief. Joy is found in all manner of places: playgrounds, prisons, classrooms, cafes, homes and hospitals. Joy is found in music and laughter, kindnesses, in animals' cuddles, in the kiss of the sea and in the caress of the sand. Joy is found in being held and in holding, in being fondly looked upon and deeply accepted. Mary Oliver, as those of you who are familiar with her biography will know, found her healing, her God, her joy, in walking each day in the woods and stopping to notice and ponder and allowing the beauty of nature to overcome the so-named natural fear she had instilled. This finding of joy was not logical. For as the poem says, there is much destruction of lives and whole towns even. People are often not wise and often not kind. Some things cannot be reversed or redeemed. So what hope is there? What joy is there? Maybe hope and joy are fantasies we fool ourselves with. And yet the grace of the earth, the rhythm of God, the touch of the wee things, says otherwise. Life has some possibility left. Yes, that simple sentence in the poem is an affirmation of faith. And very likely you notice it, that is life with some possibility left, in the instance when love begins. That's also the thing about weddings. They don't just celebrate the couple or romantic love. They celebrate love itself. Love in all its multifaceted fullness. Love in its expectedness and exceptionalness. Maybe that's why the community of John made up a story about Jesus going to a wedding. The fourth Gospel, compiled sometime in the early 2nd century, does not seek to tell us the biography of Jesus, but the meaning of Jesus. And two great themes predominate: Jesus as light of the world, and Jesus bringing life in all its abundance. Note, neither this light or life are exclusively reserved for his followers. They are for the benefit of all people, for the whole ecumene, the whole inhabited earth, including each and every ecosystem and creature. Scholars find this wedding story in John 2, 1-11 a bit befuddling. Appropriate enough perhaps, given all the wine. Some of this has to do with the story's curious place in the Johannine narrative, as the first of Jesus' signs, yet performed when his hour has not yet come. There are all sorts of Old Testament allusions in the passage, banquets and bridegrooms. And then there is the curious role given to his mother, Mary, a role that bears no similarity to any other gospel story. Today I simply want to talk about the wine, which after all is why the passage is so renowned beyond the doors of churches. The miracle produced a lot of wine, 500 litres. Nowadays that would be 667 bottles of this size. Much more than a wedding needs. An abundance. An abundance, life in its abundance, is what this reading is all about. In the Hebrew Bible, unlike our understandings of today, wine was not primarily about revelry and festivity, or about the ascetic or culinary, but about plenty and provision. It was about God providing what is needed for life to exist and flourish. In the economic and social world of the New Testament, wine is not a symbol or even a treat, but a foodstuff. Modern Westerners may think of it only as a luxury and an intoxicant. Yet for the ancients it was an effective way of storing the food value of the vines that were an important part of subsistence agriculture. Wine was food. Neither was wine just a preserve of the wealthy. The poor also drank wine, if of lesser quality and perhaps less often. This was a world in which finding sustenance was for most people a daily concern, and wine was important to that. The biblical tradition of God's provision of abundance wine was celebratory, but in the sense of celebration known to those whose very life, not just their mood or sense of well-being, depended on that provision. I'm among those who understand the elements in our rite of Holy Communion, bread and wine, to be symbols of common food. When in the account of the Last Supper Jesus took bread and wine, he was taking common, everyday food from the table in front of him and likening it to his own life and mission. I think Jesus would be bemused by the many doctoral theses and deliberations of church authorities on what sort of wine, what sort of bread is acceptable at communion. Jesus was Samoan, he might have used coconut milk and taro. A common food reading then changes the meaning of communion. The remembrance, the sacrament, the sign of grace is not so much what we are eating, but that we're eating together. And not so much that we're eating together, but that we are together. We are sharing, listening, learning, supporting, celebrating, dreaming, and caring. It's in such actions, in being together, in the doing, that Jesus is in our midst, among us. The fourth Gospel has a long communion sermon embedded in it in John 6, and it begins with a feeding miracle. Note that, like with the large quantity of wine, there is much bread here, enough to feed the multitude and have 12 baskets left over. And like with the wedding at Cana, there are lots of Old Testament allusions too. My point is simply abundance, an abundance of common food for sharing and sustaining, and God revealed in the provision and conviviality of such abundance. Note too, though, that both with the wedding in John 2 and the multitude gathered in John 6, there's no demarcation between believers and non-believers. All who were there were provided for. And there were lots of leftovers to take and share with those who weren't there. Life in all its abundance, you see, is not for keeping for oneself or one's group, but for sharing widely, indeed with the whole of the ecumenate. Joy, love, and community are not for keeping for oneself or one's group, but for sharing widely. In such sharing and giving, the light of God in Jesus is known. Blessings to you this week.